Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today in the Ask SSM video series, got an email from a subscriber. This guy is 45 years old. He's been watching the channel for a little bit, and he really needs our help with his friend. You see, his friend, who's also 45, is having, for lack of a better term, a midlife crisis. And also, in a way, kind of an end-of-the-life type of crisis. What does it all mean? Because his doctor says because of his health issues, he may have 10 years to live. And because of that, he's made a lot of bonehead decisions lately. In particular, gotten himself involved with a single MOM with kids. Obviously, she's a single mom with kids. And this woman here is obviously a train wreck, and she's using him for everything it's worth and trying to milk him for the money and get him to marry her. So much so that this guy who's writing is convinced she's trying to get him to go to an early grave so she can get access to the money quicker. No joke. And this whole thing, guys, is about him talking about his experiences with the single MOMs. He actually says he's dated some cool ones, but even then realized it's better for single dads to be with single moms. And he just needs definitely some good counsel with his buddy here. Now, as you can see, this is a longer video for this type of series, but it's really... He really gets into quite the details with his friend here, and I thought we'd go over here because, it's interesting, but it seems that his friend, I got to point this out here, understands in here, but emotionally, with regards to the single mom thing, he's still, and I think it's much deeper than just typical stuff. I think it's really him having a kind of a crisis, and I thought it'd be relatable to a lot of guys here that may be doing that type of thing, thinking, I'm going to die soon, I want to have a legacy, I want to have something left behind, so he rushes into a relationship and all that, and just, it's a bad idea. And so hopefully we can help the guy out. Anyway, I went on too long there, but I'm obviously in a chatty kind of mood. So he says here, hey SSM. Well, this is a long one, but a story that I think could benefit from some listener input, and is possibly relatable to some of the guys out there. You can call me Rob, and for background here, my buddy Dave and I are both 45 years old, child-free, and self-made entrepreneurs in the entertainment and tech industry. Well, that's awesome, man. Good for you guys. A few years ago, I was dating Katie. Okay, now we're going to get into his personal experience here. Take a wild guess what Katie was. Katie and I had worked together in the nightclub industry before it was basically shut down by the pandemic restrictions. She was a bartender and go-go dancer, while I was a DJ and event producer. You were dating a go-go dancer? I hope you didn't take her too seriously, dude. When the 2020 quarantine went into effect, we spent a lot of time together, and one thing led to another. While I'm adamantly opposed to dating the single MOMs, as well as bartenders and dancers, I made an exception. Smack! Of course you did, because obviously she was good looking. I made an exception for Katie because she was exempt from many of the red flags I've seen in the single MOMs. Please, you just liked her rack and her butt, and you wanted to get some. And it was the lockdown, and you know what I mean? That's what was going on. It was either her or OnlyFans, so you chose her. Okay, I'm making fun of you a little bit. Maybe she was cool, in spite of things like that. I'm not a fan of bartenders. They tend to have giant egos, but whatever. Well, she took accountability for her life circumstances, and she wasn't looking for a stepdad. Bullshit. Other coworkers refer to her as a prude due to her not partaking in the typical degenerate after-hours activities. She was a go-go dancer, and she's not partaking in doing things that are degenerate. She was down to earth with a high 8 on the attractiveness scale. She did not drink, was generally great company, and most of all, she took ownership over her household situation and did not expect me to make up for what her kid's dad had failed to do. Well, that's good, but the cynic in me is always like, until you're roped in. I was also not a target for angry by proxy, meaning I was not paying for the sins of her ex. For all intents and purposes, Katie was and still is a super cool chick. Now, in spite of my comments and jokes and my natural ability to be cynical here, there are some good and cool single moms out there. But even the best ones, and I've known some, still there's baggage. There's a little kid or a teenager and stuff like that, and you're always going to come last. And even if they're cool, their kid can be a giant pain in the ass, And regardless, at some point you're going to expect it to step in. And it's just, as you know, just best to have the single dads go with the single moms. Well, that being said, when I began dating her, I told myself by dating a single mom, I was walking into a casino. The house usually wins, and I'm taking a gamble about partaking. And if things went to shit, I knew whose fault it would be. Yeah, yours, because it's always the guy's fault. A nice casino is still a casino, and a nice single mom is still a single mom. So I was there to have fun, but I knew it was a risk. We dated for 3 years, and it went well. Wow, man, 3 years, and you walked out of there with saying good things about her? That was rare. We eventually broke up because, as they say, facts don't care about feelings. And the facts were that she was a single mom and I was a dude in his 40s trying to rebuild a career from scratch. I eventually ended things but she saw it coming, and since then we stayed friendly, but not friends, as our circle is small. I don't feel a shred of regret, and she's been extremely cool about me moving on. Well, that's good. That's the best kind of breakup. No freaking drama. So you know what? Obviously, she's one of the cool ones. Good for her, because she could have tried to, drag your name through the mud and all that, but now, listen to what he's about to say next, guys. He's going to address something about the single moms that, frankly, I've never really talked about, and it's important to mention. I understand this is a rare situation with her, but it plays into a hard lesson I learned the hard way. The lesson is, I will never date a single mother again, because I don't miss her, but I still miss her kid. As opposed to dating someone or even a business partnership, the relationship you develop with someone's kid is not romantic or transactional. There is no mutual understanding that it may end if things go wrong. Even though I never played stepdad to him, I was basically like an uncle. I attended sports games, gave advice when the kid was getting bullied at school, or stuck on math homework. All the stuff I'd do with a nephew or niece. Once an adult enters the kid's life, the kid expects the relationship to be permanent. So when things end when the relationship with the mom is concerned, the kid has to watch as a paternal adult figure leaves their lives, due to reasons they cannot control. So anyway, guys, what he's getting at here is something I really never talked about, the attachment to the kids. Because some of these moms can have good kids, and even if she's a train wreck, the kids are good kids stuck with her. And the guy is dating her for a while, or involved with her, he can start really liking the kids. And the kids really like him. And it is unfortunate when you have to part ways. But at the end of the day, guys, you got to take care of you. But obviously, you don't want to hurt any good kids out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some single moms out there that have little freaking demon kids that you're probably like, bye-bye, asshole, when you leave. But in this situation, good ones. When you break up with someone, it does hurt. But there is an understanding from the get-go that breaking up is an inherent risk. But to a child, it's out of their control when you leave their environment, and it's like losing a pet or relative. Even if my sister and I had a falling out, I would be an uncle to her kids. The same cannot be said when you break up with a single MOM. This email isn't about me or my relationship with Kate, or Katie, but the details so far will provide context for something later on. Okay, he brought up an issue I haven't talked about many times, guys. A lot of guys don't talk about the kids, the good kids that get hurt, or the guy gets hurt by having to walk away, and he's attached to the kid too. Now on to the situation with his bro. I told you this is a longer video, but this is a good one. So I was catching up with my buddy Dave about a year after breaking up with Katie. Dave had asked about what had happened. I shared the prior story with Dave, and he goes into detail about how he had just ended a relationship with a girl who I will call Abby. Abby was well known around our social circle as a super chill, grounded chick, almost one of the guys without being a tomboy in looks. Abby was apolitical, drama-free, a music scene girl who looked like Uma Thurman and had opted for a life of nights out and wine over children. From what I remember, Abby was a child-free, drama-free cougar, which is a rare catch over 40. Okay, you all heard this babbling on about Abby here. Abby is so cool and awesome and good looking and chill, drama free, until she's not. So I asked Dave what happened with him and Abby. Dave proceeded to tell me that he had just spent over $10,000 on lawyer's fees to get Abby out of his house. Apparently, a few months into dating, Abby had moved herself into Dave's house after leaving in a quote-unquote abusive situation with her prior boyfriend and completely let herself go. After moving with Dave, she would not bathe, go to work, or even take care of basic household tasks like cleaning up after herself because it was traumatic emotional labor. So much for the cool chick. So she moves in, refuses to bathe or take care of herself, probably so this guy wouldn't want to sleep with her. Won't leave the house, and you know what she's doing? Maybe you guys can connect the dots what she's doing here. Although apolitical, Abby had adopted many of the victim mindset social justice warrior traits, such as claiming disability with no documentation, blaming the system, men, the patriarchy, astrology, whatever, for all her problems in life, and telling Dave that he can't break up with her because of, and I'm not exaggerating, squatter rights. If you couldn't tell already, Dave and I live in a progressive state where common sense has been outlawed and victimhood is seen as a virtue. Squatter rights is a fancy way of saying legal theft by refusing to leave. For those of your viewers fortunate enough to not live in a coastal city. Portland, huh? Oh, yippee. Well, bro, if you and your buddy Dave have done well for yourselves and you're successful entrepreneurs throughout your life and you got money, perhaps it's time to relocate. They don't allow that crap here in Florida. Well, there you go. That's why I spent $10,000 to get the bitch out. Squatter rights. Disgrace. I don't know about you guys, but some way, somehow, somebody got my place and tried to take over and claim that. Well, I can't say what would be done here, but I, like many, you would lose my temper, and, well, I'd be in prison or on the run. Basically, once someone lives in your home, an Airbnb or trailer, campsite, shed, whatever, for over 30 days, they are seen as a tenant, and you cannot just ask them to leave. Oh yeah, where's the tenancy agreement? Where's the whole landlord-tenant agreement? Call the police, and they will tell you it's a civil matter. Take them to civil court, and a judge in horn-rimmed glasses and problem bangs will tell you it's inhumane to evict them. The only way out is a lawyer most people cannot afford. Well, Dave spent $10,000 to get the bitch out. To make a novel-length story short, David spent the last year trying to get Abby to move out, which culminated in the sheriff having to eventually remove Abby from Dave's property. How this is allowed is I can't believe it. Well, Dave was exhausted, but finally relieved by getting his life back together. We shared our respective dating stories and made the half-joking agreement that neither of us would be dating any more single moms or midlife train wrecks in the near future. I remember this conversation quite clearly because we joked that for the rest of our lives, our dating range will be whatever the current year is, meaning we're only dating between 20 and 2024 for the then current year, 2025, after that, and so on. This most recent September, I was backing up music hard drives and came across a bunch of beats that I had purchased. I failed to mention earlier that Dave and I used to be in a band together, with Dave as a rapper and me as a DJ. This project was mildly successful, but more importantly, extremely fun. We fall into the Bloodhound Gang or the Insane Clown Posse end of the musical spectrum, meaning that it's less about musical talent and more like throwing an insanely fun show with lowbrow humor and mild degeneracy galore. We've been compared to Gwar if they were a rap group, if that helps provide context. I only remember seeing Gwar videos on MTV when I'd watch Beavis and Butthead. They'd be flipping the channels, and Beavis and Butthead would make fun of all the videos, and they'd lose their shit when it was Gwar. Yeah. So I suggested we put the old band back together, seeing as we were both without girlfriend duties and coming out of a lockdown ripple. He thought it was a great idea and that we could poke fun at some sensitive cultural subject matters and enjoy a proper midlife crisis without single moms or psycho roommate girlfriends. Well, I told Dave we need to set a calendar date to hit the studio, and we set a date. This conversation was in September of this year, and our studio time was set for November. Okay, these are recent events, guys. This is 2025. Then in October, I get a text from Dave asking if I can DJ his wedding. His wedding. You were just talking about being single and enjoying the midlife, and now he's engaged? Fuck is this? At first I thought, was this a joke? Then I assumed he'd gotten back together with Abby. So I checked Abby's social media, and nope, she's with some other guy, so I called Dave. I said, dude, what the hell do you mean, can I DJ a wedding? Yours? Please do explain this shit now. Only a month prior, shortly after our phone call, David began to date a girl I will call Margot. Margot and Dave had been friends with benefits back in the early 2000s, and the two had reconnected recently. Now, Margot has 2 kids in tow, both between the ages of 5 and 10 years old, and somehow Margot had convinced Dave to be official, and they were going to get married. I was at a loss for words, and I talk a lot. Okay, I think I can do what the audience is thinking here. Smack, smack, smack. What in God's name is Dave thinking? Well, clearly Dave's not thinking, because Dave's losing his mind. Midlife crisis, and there's other things going on here. Going to marry his former friends with benefits? Who's a single MOM? It's a terrible idea. Just marrying anybody, after all, is a terrible idea. I said, what do you mean you're getting married? Dave responded, well, I'm not getting any younger, and after the whole thing with Abby, I just want to be with a normal chick. Really, this is the normal chick? This is when I reminded Dave about the relationship with the single mom, Katie, and how painful it was to break up with someone after developing a familiar relationship with their kid. I tell him that even in my case, with no drama and no baby daddy issues and no chaos, at the end of the day, single moms are single moms. They deserve love, yes, but that love needs to come from some single dads. Well, I'm glad you're sensible about this whole thing, dude. People with kids should date people with kids. We're child-free, we've worn condoms our whole lives, and we've taken steps to be where we are in life, and that we need to hold potential romantic partners to the same standards. I reminded him of the conversation we had when we joked about the 2024-2025 age ranges that we'd agreed to. He laughed, but told me the wedding would be next April. I reluctantly agreed to DJ the wedding. Smack! I wouldn't have done that. Get somebody else. You got to give him some kind of pushback here. Knowing that it would likely never happen, but wanting to end the conversation and not go full R-pill manosphere on my buddy who was hopefully just reacting to a dry spell. I don't know, man. If there was ever a time to go full R-pill manosphere on him, that is the time. God's sakes. You got to send him my channel and go smack him. Well, November rolls around and I buy some new studio gear for our recording session. I clear up a whole week for studio time, postpone personal plans, dust off the turntables, and the day for a recording comes around. It was at noon and no call. 2 p.m., no call. 4 p.m., no call. So I finally called Dave. Shit, I'd be called in 20 minutes after it didn't show up at 12. Dave picks up after one ring and sounds distracted, saying, yeah? I tell him, dude, I'm at the studio with a new mixer and needles. Where are you? That's when Dave says to me, oh, hell, man, I forgot. I'm picking up the kids from school. Holy crap. This guy's lost his mind. I say, since when do you have kids? Knowing the answer, but not wanting to admit it. Dave responds, they're Margot's kids. She's at work. I can't pick them up. And can't pick them up. So here Dave is, 2 short months into a relationship, and he's already in full stepdad mode. For context here, I didn't meet Katie's kid for over a year into the relationship. Dave is 2 months in and already playing taxi cab for somebody else's kids, and even calling them the kids, not her kids. I ask him point blank, so are you telling me you're putting off our recording session to play stepdad for a friends with benefits situation? Dave cuts me off and says, future wife. Oh my, please tell me you ran over there as fast as you could or rode a skateboard or something and smacked the shit out of him. Well, I assume Dave was just going through a different midlife crisis than the one I had suggested we both partake in. Dude, you're darn right he's going through a midlife crisis. Absolutely. After what he's been through with that crazy Abby chick, the squatter and all that. But we're going to get more into why I agree with you with the midlife thing. And I tell him to basically fuck off in a way that male friends do, knowing I don't actually mean to fuck off forever, but to fuck off for the time being. So a couple weeks pass by, bringing us to early December. A mutual friend shoots me a text. It's a screenshot from Facebook that says Dave is married. This is not the kind of Christmas miracle you were looking for. The mutual friend asked me if Dave is playing a prank. I fill him in what's going on and what I know, telling him that the wedding is supposedly happening in April, but other than that, I'm clueless. I gave Dave a call and asked him if he's been taking shots of retard juice directly from the bottle while dancing half naked in traffic. He tells me that Margot wanted to make things official on paper, but Dave didn't want to sign any court documents until the wedding. So she told him to change his Facebook status. In other words, trying to put out to the world that they're officially together. They're married. And that could cause problems for him depending on local laws, and you get the point. Please put a pin in this point for the moment, as is part of my main concern and why I emailed you, SSM. Of note, as a wedding DJ, I've noticed that most chicks care about the ceremony itself, not the paperwork. Margot, on the other hand, seems to be focused on the paperwork itself and less so on the ceremony. I disagree. Girls nowadays care a lot more about the paperwork, what they get out of the marriage, and Instagram pictures than actually the ceremony and all that. And come on. Remember, they're in business. At this point, I decided Dave just needs to touch the hot stove on his own, and I can't convince him not to fuck up his own life. I wrote off the studio time as a tax loss and moved on with my week. Dave and I have been friends for decades, and even if his wedding is a bad idea, I'm going to just DJ the event and then perhaps take the microphone after a few glasses of champagne if I feel like making a justified spectacle. Well, that could be interesting. Well, then yesterday, it's currently mid-December, the same mutual friend who had asked me about Dave's social media married life status shoots me a text that reads, "Woo, looks like Dave dodged a bullet." Attached to the message was a Facebook screenshot that shows Dave standing next to a bottle of booze, with a caption that reads, "Apparently I'm single again, so today is booze and Star Trek day." Well, this should be welcome news that he's no longer with her, but there's still a problem here. I feel a sigh of relief, but also concern, because while I'm glad Dave is supposedly single once again, he's still my bro, and I don't want to see him drink himself into a coma while watching sci-fi. I don't use social media, so I call Dave. Dave tells me that he ended with things with Margot, but is thinking on taking her back because they still have Christmas gift exchange planned for the kids. Smack! Do not take her back. If he wants to give her kids who are presumably good kids the presents he bought, okay. But no, don't take her back. But we're going to find out more about her in a second. We have a long talk, and I remind him of what I had brought up earlier in the email, about how the hardest part of the breakup is going to be emotionally detaching from the kids. Knowing he'd been playing stepdad for a bit, not only does he tell me I'm correct, but he lets me know that things had been bad for a bit. And he only stuck around because he didn't want to disappoint the kids. This whole relationship with the former friends of benefits has only been going on since September, 3 months. And it's already really bad. This guy's really lost when he's doing this quickly. I tell him that I still send Katie's kid a happy birthday text even though Katie and I don't ever plan on dating again. I let him know that he needs to separate from Margot and that her kids are a factor in whether or not he continues the relationship. I tell him to pretend those kids are his nephews and treat them as such. He can mail them Christmas gifts without even seeing their mom again. There you go. Simple. Shouldn't be a problem. But the problem is you're not dealing with somebody who's thinking rationally. You're thinking of somebody that's coming from a place of emotion, because there's more to this. During this conversation, I learned that Margot had taken issue with Dave's drinking. Dave has always been a pretty mild alcohol user. No different than anybody else in a large city who hangs around musicians and dancers. He does, however, have a messed up heart condition and isn't supposed to be drinking at all. Well, then that's pretty stupid if he's drinking. Come on here. But Dave lets me know that he's been pretty heavy on the sauce as of late due to all the fights. And I ask him to clarify about said fights. Apparently Margot has been physically assaulting Dave on the regular. But Dave doesn't say anything because he's a dude. Instead, he just drinks a lot to numb himself from the situation. This has turned into a cycle in which she hits him, he drinks more, she justifies hitting him, so he drinks even more. Dave is usually not the type to be a victim. Your buddy needs help, man. And if he has a major heart condition, then that is only going to make it worse. Obviously, she knows it. She's trying to take him to an early grave to try to get in on his money. For context, Dave is a firearms owner, 6'2", and someone who has walked through South Central LA in a Megadeth shirt at 3 a.m. looking for a hat that says Compton at sketchy convenience stores during a Disneyland trip because he wanted a real souvenir from California. This guy's nice, but far from soft. He's not a typical simp Reddit new male type. He just doesn't want to end up in jail because telling a woman in Portland no is basically a felony. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I know plenty of guys that are guys. They like the beer, they do boxing, martial arts, former military, former police officers, current military, current police officers, tough dudes. But when it comes to the women in their lives, or any woman in their lives, they are simp central. I think in your buddy's case, he has proven to be that in some capacity, but also he's kind of going through a crisis. Dave tells me, dude, she told me right to my face in front of her kids that she hates me. I don't even want to see her again, but her kids love me. Not your problem, Dave. You don't set yourself on fire to keep somebody else warm. I asked him what was the rush to get married, seeing as this seemed like a very bad situation. Dave says to me she just wants the paperwork, and she's mad about me drinking because my doctor says I only have about 10 years to live, less if I keep up the drinking. I'd break up with her, but I want to stay together for the kids because they need a dad. Smack! What'd I tell you about the whole SIMP thing? No, it's not your problem. And I'm not saying it to the guy who's telling the story. I'm talking about the Dave character. Not Dave's problem. Anyway, he says I made Facebook official per her request, so we might as well be married. You go around saying you're married, that gives her access to your money. That's when it clicks. I realize exactly what is going on. Dave has some health issues, a lot of money, and she knows this. His life expectancy is about 10 years from now, but it'll be even shorter if he drinks a lot. So short that he might not even make it until his wedding. The wedding at which Margot will get papers signed. Papers that allow her access to half of Dave's shit, his house, and whatever else the courts decide. My gut tells me that Margot knows Dave has limited time and wants to lock him down before he's gone. Ding, ding, ding. And darn right about that. And Dave was a bonehead for telling her about his net worth and assets and all that. This is why she wanted the Facebook status update, to have something in writing before the wedding next year in case it never happens. Dave is a vulnerable, lonely man, one who just got done having to evict his ex-girlfriend, so Margot swooped in and took advantage of him. Yes, he's lonely. He's vulnerable. He had a midlife crisis, and now he's also probably looking at the big picture. I'm going to die soon, and he's panicking. He needs you, man. This is a little different than the usual situation when guys act like jackasses, because they don't think that they're dying anytime soon. After all, she may be a single mom, but she's not crazy. She's not crazy Abby. So while my instinct was to remind Dave about the emotional risk of dating a single MOM, it has evolved into me worrying this chick is trying to lock down half his stuff before he kicks the bucket. Dave is a successful tech entrepreneur who accidentally bought the right crypto before it went 100 times in size. The guy has his life set where finances are concerned, and at heart, he's a lonely dude with an empty house. And she wants to take advantage of him. This chick pops up from the past, turns him into an instant stepdad, and then starts slapping the crap out of him whenever she feels like it. So now he's drinking, which gives her reason to smack him even more, so he drinks more, and now his life is just circling the drain. I don't want to see my friend kick the bucket, nor do I want to see him throw away his life with a single MOM. Neither Dave nor I believe in blaming the world or playing the victim. Well, good, don't start now. But as much as I hate to admit it, there is a shred of truth in the idea that men won't, or in some cases can't, address our issues. Dave is in a bad headspace, like the sunken place from the Get Out movie. I don't think he can see the forest through the trees, and also the forest is on fire. Yeah, it's a flaming inferno. Called Margot. I'm writing because I have no idea what to tell him, how to interject, or if I should just beat Margot's butt in public while yelling transphobia or free Palestine, thus allowing me to get away with it because it's Portland. The TLDR is that I learned how painful it is to break up with a single mom, even when she has 0 red flags. Meanwhile, my homie is drinking himself to death, while a single MOM is trying to get the legal right to have his shit. But he's sticking around for the kids, and I have no idea how to help him out. Dave is not a simp. Well, he's behaving like it in some ways, dude. He's a smart dude, and during our time together as a band, we used to smash questionable objects and dash away like we were Super Mario Brothers. But while I learned my lesson and am currently focused on becoming my best self, Dave was basically touring in the Utero and watching Margot Love stare at his bank account while he spirals into depression, if you get the reference. The one thing I want to make clear is that the kids aren't random homies from the bar. To a kid, their immediate reality is their world. By dating a single MOM, you are directly adding to a child's world, and when you leave, a part of their world is gone. You're not being judgmental or bigoted by avoiding women with kids. I agree with that. You're simply choosing not to complicate the world of a miniature adult who does not know any better. If you don't have herpes, don't date someone with herpes. If you eat meat, don't date a vegan. If you don't have kids, don't date someone with kids. And if you're a vegan with kids and herpes, I wish you the best in meeting another vegan with kids and herpes. I'm just not that guy. Any advice from you or your listeners would be great, and I appreciate the absolute hell out of your channels and look forward to your take on this situation. Man, dude, yeah, this is definitely different than the other ones, and I see what's going on here. It's the midlife crisis. It's the fact that sadly he's 45 and the doctors are saying you got 10 years left if you behave yourself with the alcohol. I really think he's having a big holy crap, I'm going to die soon. I don't have any kids. I never was married. I kind of want to. A lot of guys worry about a legacy, a way that they can live on once they're gone. And maybe that's why he's rushing in with her, or feeling like he was some kind of loser because he didn't have a wife and kids. There'd be a whole bunch of things there. And of course, like midlife shit, or like, holy crap, is this it? Is this it? All I've done? Empty house? He needs you now more than ever, man. And a lot of times I'm of the opinion that there's a point when you try hard enough and then you say, okay, I've done all I could. And at that point then, you crash and burn. Because you won't listen to reason, because guys are thick-headed. And I do think that is the ultimate final answer there. But in your situation with him, if I were you, I would get him out and have a serious talking about this whole thing. And he could really use some freaking professional help. Okay? If he wasn't, because she's attacking him. That's criminal. And obviously she's doing it to quickly end his life so she can get her grubby hands on his stuff. He needs help. And a professional, the right one, can help him probably come to see what's really going down deep. Because a lot of guys don't want to admit that they're vulnerable or weak or anything like that. I mean, who can blame us? And when we try to do it to our girlfriend or wives, you know how that goes. But if there's anybody he can talk to, it's you. And I think if he really can understand, at least this is my take, that he's probably freaking out about dying in 10 years, or that's why, and he's vulnerable, that's what really is behind all this. Once, in my experience, guys, and maybe some of you've experienced this, depression runs in my family. My grandfather had it really freaking bad. My mom really freaking bad. My sister and me. And I learned over the years how to deal with it so I didn't get dragged down, because when I was younger, I got dragged down because I didn't know what to do. The first thing to get out of it is to actually come to terms you're actually depressed. Come to terms and start unraveling some self-diagnosis. What the hell's wrong with me? And when I had times when that happened in my life, guys, and I'm being honest with you guys, when I finally came to admit it, A, I'm depressed, and B, this is what it is, I started feeling better. So I think once Dave really can come to terms what it actually is that's causing him to do this sudden knee-jerk behavior that he normally wouldn't do, I think that will help him. But he really could use your help, and I would do that for him. And for God's sakes, he's got to shut down the whole Facebook thing. Now, some people might say, big deal, he's saying he's married on Facebook. Well, depending where you live and how the courts are, they might see that as, hey, he's acknowledging that he's married, so she's entitled to some of his stuff. I mean, you are in Portland, for God's sakes, and they allow squatting. I can't imagine what they would do with something like that. So it needs to take away the whole Facebook being married status. She did that on purpose. And with regards to those kids, okay, they're probably good kids. Well, give them the Christmas presents. He can, it's 2 days of Christmas at this point, but anyhow, he can deliver them to somehow. And that's that. And it's not his job to be their dad. Okay, they may be great kids. I hope they are. But it's not his job. End of story. And sticking around with her for that? No, that's where this white knight shit's coming in. Again, I think this is probably freaking out because he's getting older. So, guys, please do chime away in the comment section some advice for this guy, things he can do to help him out, because this Dave guy obviously is losing it. And again, this is different than other stories I've gone through, and guys have done the same thing, but they weren't having a midlife crisis. They weren't going to die in 10 years or less. This is a little different. But I will also say this, brother, I would really do what you can to help your friend, even though he's driving you nuts. But at the end of the day, after everything you tried, at that point then, and only then at that point then you got to back away. Because again, you can't ruin your life or make yourself crazy trying to get through to him when he doesn't want any help. And then when he wants your help, then you can be there for him. if he doesn't push it too far. So guys, there you go. Lots of more reasons reinforcing you're a single guy, date single girls. The single dads can go with the single moms and all that. And while they're not all a giant pain in the butt, the situation with the kids can be tough, both for you, the attachment to the good kids, and the kids' attachment to you, because the kids don't know what the hell's going on, and it's not their fault. But again, I've covered this subject so many times over the years, and here we go, another one. So I do wish this guy the best. Maybe we can have a little Christmas miracle here. We got 2 days to the big day. But best of luck with your bro, and you know what? Let me know. Let me know how it goes, because I don't want to see him have to end his life any sooner by drinking away his misery and making it even worse. So he definitely needs help, because I think if he wasn't depressed and probably freaking out about dying in 10 years and that, I don't think he would have gotten himself with this girl. I really don't. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And guys, you definitely do chime away. Give this guy some advice, some help, anything. And be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.